go. Ivan, first of all, welcome. Thank you for doing this. My question, and my first one to kick off, is about your style. When we first met, you were still experimenting with things. I'm keen to understand how long it took you to land on this style and what made you go in this direction.
Oh, wow. Well, firstly, thanks for having me. Thanks for hosting. I think that's a question of perspective, really. I don't think there's ever a point, I hope there's never a point where I feel that are set in stone and, you know, that's my style and that's what I do. I see it as a continual evolution. But I think what we do as photographers, you know, the sort of the artist in us is all about taking influences from everything that we see, everything that we kind of consume, and then putting that through some sort of filter of, you know, who we want to be as an artist, and then what comes out is what comes out. I don't think there's a huge amount of intention behind it. I mean, it's no secret, I like the technical side of photography. I get excited by trying different techniques and using different equipment, those kind of things. But I'm equally as into the interaction with the subject, and that's why portrait photography is my thing rather than product photography or landscape photography. And it's a continual thing of working those two elements off of each other, I think, really, and that's what's led me to the work that I'm doing at the moment. I sincerely hope that if we have this discussion again in 2 years' time, there'll be, you know, another progression in my style. Hopefully not something so radically different that you're like, well, who's that? But yeah, I don't feel it's something that's you know, formulaic and set in stone just yet. Hopefully.
Yeah, thanks. And just to mention, the way we're going to take questions is if you can post them in the chat. I'm going to try my best to sort of guide it around what the topic is. So Barry has jumped straight in. And Barry, if I can fire it over to you to ask your question.
Sure. First of all, Ivan, thank you so much for doing this. Every morning when I log into LinkedIn, I look forward to seeing one of your images. And I'm still trying to figure out what your style is. I think it's very varied, which is one of the things that I think is really neat about it. And that leads to the question of what's your process for working with your clients and coming up with what the theme or style or shoot is going to look like. That's something that I've been wondering about for a long time.
Sure. Well, I think with all photography, you should probably start with a purpose, especially when it's portrait photography, because you've got another person in the room and you need to keep them engaged and cooperative, or you at least need to be in charge of how cooperative they're being. So in the world of, you know, getting paid to take pictures, if I'm being asked to create a magazine cover for you know, somebody who's CEO of a company, I'm probably not, and it's a positive story about that person and that company, I'm probably going to have to reel in my tendencies to go sort of dark and dramatic, because it's just not going to fit the purpose. So the purpose of the image is the primary driver of what it's going to look like. And then beyond that, it's going to be a number of factors, including how well I'm working with the person, how experimental I'm feeling, all of those kind of things. You know, we have sort of go-to moves that we've practiced in previous shoots. And if the person says, you know, could we do something a bit lighter in mood or whatever, you know, I've got things that I can automatically go to do that. And if I'm getting good feedback from them, because they are the client, not just the subject, we'll perhaps, you know, experiment some more and go further down that road. It's you know, a huge number of factors. If the person turns up with one shirt and no change of clothes, that's going to limit how many different things we shoot and how experimental we're going to get.
Do you, Matt, can I ask a follow-on or?
Sure, go ahead, Barry.
Do you start with any research on the client, or do you have a discussion with them about how they're going to use the photographs and what their thinking is? And also, are most of your clients individuals, or are they for a purpose, like for a magazine cover or their portfolio or something like that?
So that's primarily client driven as well. Almost all of my clients are private individuals, so people hire me to take a picture of them for their own use. I do some other work as well, but the vast majority of what I'm doing is individual stuff. So when somebody books, I will have a look around online to see if I can get an idea of who they are and what they look like and what they're doing. And in some cases, I have a phone call or an email back and forth with them beforehand, if they want to. If they don't, then we don't. And some people have very minimal online presence, and with just a name and last name, if it's something relatively common or generic, I've got no idea if I'm turning looking at the right person when I Google them and look for information. So sometimes they come into the studio and I've got very little idea beyond name, surname, and credit card details. The important bits.
Don Carrick, you've got a great question. Go ahead.
Unmute yourself, Don.
There I am. Hey, Ivan, how are you?
Hey, Don. Good.
Yes, I'm curious about what part of your look happens in camera versus in post. Could you talk a little bit about that relationship?
Sure. Yeah. So the thing that I would say is that I'm not a fantastic retoucher. I enjoy retouching as a way of developing a picture to be the best that it can be, but I don't like creating in post-production. So I'm not a graphic artist, I suppose is what I'm saying. So for me, the way I work is that I like to create everything in camera and then enhance in post-production. I'm sure you could find people who are super talented in image manipulation who could create everything pretty much from scratch, but that's just not something that interests me. So to me, it's about photography, which to come back to the basics, it's about lighting. I try to get as much as I can right in camera and right in inverted commas, the way I want it in camera, and then use post-production to enhance the mood that's been created. So lighting is incredibly important. I don't know how to take a flat, contrastless picture and turn it into something dramatic. If I want something dramatic, I have to light it that way to begin with. And vice versa. If I'm looking for something that's sort of light and open and airy in feel, it has to be lit that way. Now, of course, you can do things like change the color of somebody's clothes or whatever if you feel that it's not right for the mood. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with doing that, but I prefer to sort of feed off the shoot to find out where we're going to go for the final image, and that has to be based on the feedback and the interaction that we've got in the studio. So capturing something as close as possible to the final image in camera is super important. And then the post-production process is about enhancing that and tweaking that and removing any distractions and correcting any mistakes that I may have made during the shoot.
May I follow up quickly, Matt? So, I mean, your stuff has such a characteristic color cast to it. It's very much seems very much part of the style. Does that happen with your lighting, and that you use gels or anything like that, or that just the I don't know if you can adjust the color tone of your light in other ways, but.
Yeah, so in terms of the color grading for me is a post-production process. In camera, I will play with some subtle variations of, you know, cooler lights and warmer lights, but not to a huge degree. You know, I don't. There's another Freelancer Club member, Jake Hicks, who does like really contrasty, very, very colorful work, and he does that all in camera using gels. That's not really in keeping with my work for the most part. I've done some stuff on that end, but yeah, for the most part, the color grading is part of, to me, it's part of enhancing the mood of the picture, creating a sort of a reality in which to put the person, and that's done in post-production.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, Don. Sean, over to you.
Yeah, can you hear me, Ivan?
Yes, I can. Hi.
Yes, love your work. I saw it on LinkedIn. That's why I'm here. I saw your post. Why I'm here is, like, you're one of the very few people that is still doing formal portraiture. And it's a very mercenary question. I'm from the ad world. Director, creative director for many years. I was hiring photographers all over the place. And because of Instagram, the whole market is completely and utterly disintegrated, for want of a better way of putting it. So work like yours really stands out because it was crafted, and, you know, there's the native candor approach to everything that I really admire, you know. And I'm trying to emulate that, to be quite honest, but I'm finding it very difficult. Either people love it or hate it. Advertising agencies don't even bother anymore. They don't commission great photography anymore. So it's the magazines or the newspapers, or what kind of clients approach you, if you know what I mean? Because you know, the UK market is, at least there's an appreciation of quality in the UK, especially the London market, when it comes to photography. But what's the caliber of the people that approach you?
So about 90% of my clients are people in the performing arts. So actors, dancers, you know, musicians, people of that nature. The remainder are, I refer to them as corporate clients. They may not be part of a corporation. They may be running their own businesses. But my feeling on that is, you know, forgive me, but it sounds a little like you're taking the approach of trying to find a market and then creating work that satisfies that market. And while
I'm an ad guy. I'm an ad guy, so it's my instinct.
Yeah. So my approach is the opposite of that. It's create the work that I want to create and then find somebody who's willing to pay for it. And I think that if you consider what we do as portrait photographers, if you're working for private, you know, individual clients, there's about 10 million people within a 40-mile radius of where I'm sat at the moment, maybe a bit less today because of lockdown, but, you know, give or take. And I only need 200 of them a year to buy a picture from me. So it's a very niche market. The difficulty, of course, is connecting to that market and finding them, but that's where social media comes in. So I'm absolutely certain there's plenty of people who will look at my work and say it's rubbish, they don't like it, or just completely don't notice it, and that's absolutely fine. I don't need everyone to like it. I wouldn't want everyone to like it. I need 200 people a year to like it enough to hire me.
No, that's. But do the major sort of publications approach you, like you know, the art buyers at the Telegraph magazine or whatever, you know?
No,
like the old school of,
I shoot for individual clients. Look, if you've got the contacts, hook me up. Hook me up.
No, but I wouldn't say no. A bit more mercenary than technical here, because like that's my frustration. I see some talent like you, and it should be gobbled up, if you know what I mean, by the magazine. Yeah. Which is like, but you tend to sort of steer towards more one-on-one private consultations with clients, which is fine. But it's a shame because your work should be more well known, I think.
Yeah. Thanks for saying that. I mean, I certainly wouldn't, you know, say no if I was being approached by those kind of clients. But my business model and the way I work is set up for individual interaction. So the person that pays the bill is the person that comes and sits in front of the camera for the most part. And therefore we're both invested in the process. We both want to get something out of it, and that's a great image. and it works really well. You know, obviously there's drawbacks with working that way. Like right now I can't shoot, so I can't earn any money. And there's no sort of, there's no residual income in that business model. I'm not licensing pictures. But that's the model that I work on.
Okay, thanks, Ivan. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, John. Yeah,
Thank you.
Great question. I'm going to hand it over to Jen. You might have to get off your chair for this one, Ivan.
Oh man, okay.
Hi, Ivan.
Hi, Jen.
How do you like to light a face? Like, what is your standard go-to, your math or science behind it, without actually talking about math or science? What do you like?
Okay. Well, I suppose I'm going to wheel this in here, and hopefully, is this? Can we make it so that my other camera comes up as the main screen, Matt? Is that possible? There we go. There we go. So there we go. Still got the audio from the other one. To me, it's about all lighting for lighting people is about two things. One is creating shape, and the other is revealing detail. And I'm really quite heavily influenced by classical portraiture painting. So I like the Rembrandt style, that's often referred to. If anyone doesn't know what that means, you can Google it. But essentially, it's about lighting the face in a kind of diagonal way, so that one side of the face is more or less fully lit, and then enough of the other side of the face is revealed to feel like you're seeing the full face, but also to produce a good amount of shadow to give drama and contrast. So the easiest way of doing that is to put a light really quite close, slightly higher than eye level, and slightly further in front than the nose is, and just let the light fall across the face. That's not going to work for everything. Wherever you're creating shadow, you're going to be creating, drama and weight. You might not want that if you're shooting something for a lifestyle image, for example. There you probably want much flatter, more open lighting, but that's not something that particularly interests me. So if we assume that that's always going to be the sort of the starting point, everything else that I do with lights from that point on is to solve a problem. If I like to think of it in those terms. So if I just have one light here, giving me a sort of Rembrandt pattern, maybe this side of my beard is going to be so dark that you don't see any detail in it, so I need some kind of fill light just to control that. Maybe I'm so far from the background that it's gone to pitch black, and I don't want pitch black, so I've got to bring another light in to control that level of where the black point sits essentially in the image. So that's going to be another light there. If I'm losing detail in the clothing because I'm wearing something very dark, I'm going to again need to have some kind of fill light to solve that problem that we can't see detail that I want to reveal in the final image.
Thanks, Jen.
Does that make sense?
We've got a related question I want to jump to. Nella Call, I think it's Colin. If it is.
Yeah, it's Colin, thank you.
Yeah, cheers.
Yeah, hi, Ivan. Funny enough, your answer to Jen's question almost followed on from mine, which is basically, I said here, my wife has got basically 90% of this house, and I end up with a tiny room, a couple of little soft boxes and a backdrop, all very squashed. It's great frustration to me. And I just wondered how important space is to you in your studio, which clearly looking at what you've got there, it looks wonderful from my perspective.
Well, I mean, the rule is that photography will expand to fill the space available, right? When I moved into this place and saw it with no furniture or equipment in it, I thought, this is fantastic, it's huge. But as soon as you put in a couple of light stands, a large modifier, a table, a person, a camera, a tripod, it gets full up fairly quickly. the thing to do, I would say, is, just work with what you've got. You start where you are and work with what you've got. So if you find yourself constantly thinking, if only I had more space, I would, then that might suggest that you're not problem solving enough. Maybe the way to solve the problem is to move to somewhere bigger. If that's an option for you, then obviously that would solve the problem. But generally we're not quite so flexible as to be able to do that. So think of other things that you can do to work with what you've got, and be aware that however much space you've got, it will likely never be enough, because you're always going to want to push yourself to find the limits of what you can do with the equipment and space that you have. And once you find that limit, you're going to want more. Maybe the resolution there is to find a way to be able to hire a bigger space on occasions, and know and be judicious about when do I actually need that space, when is it worth renting it out, and when can I do stuff in the smaller space at home. But this place here, really for one person, it's pretty much okay. But once you've got two people in here, it's cozy. It's cozy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gan. John Meadows got a good question.
Hey, Ivan. I've been thinking about storytelling more in my portraits, and I'm wondering if you think about storytelling, if you can storytell in one image rather than several, and why you seem to only post one image of each person you shoot.
Yeah, definitely. So I think I like the word storytelling, and I think it's important for people to have that in mind when they're creating work. What am I trying to say? But I think that sometimes we can overcomplicate things and think that a story has to be, a beginning, a middle, and an end. And in the world of still photography, I don't think it has to be. The story could be as simple as, this person looks interesting, I wonder what they think. To me, that's enough of a story to communicate with a single image. Going back to the classics, painting, portraiture, you don't see more than one Mona Lisa, right? Apparently that's been enough for us for the last several centuries. Not to compare myself there, but the concept of that. I like the idea that an image is definitive in a certain way. And I definitely do post more than one image of a person from a shoot, but I tend to stick to, if I do that, posting a significantly different look of that person from the shoot, and I don't do it at the same time. I think that's just for my own sort of sake of variety, keeping my feed fairly varied. So there are definitely people that have been in my social media feed 5 or 6 times even, but with different looks, usually from different shoots as well over a significant period of time.
Thanks. Tom Barker has got a question.
Hi, Ivan.
Hi.
I'm going to switch my video on and then you can see me, maybe. I don't know. Just a really quick question, I suppose. So your headshots are wonderful. Really like the styling of your work. One thing that I wanted to know, because I'm a headshot photographer as well. Don't want to compare myself to anybody, but one question I had was, would you ever consider moving to doing a different style of work that still fits in with like your realm, like the type of stuff that you do, but is for a different purpose? So like advertising for, say, like theatre shows or TV shows, like production images, production stills, that type of thing. So I think like I look at your work and see like, oh, it's not really that far off the type of things that I see on billboards that are around for that. Like, is that something you'd want to do you think?
Absolutely. So, for me, first and foremost, it's about creating work that I'm proud of. I suppose is the main thing. My business model, as it is not set up or designed to be attracting those kind of clients for doing, theatre productions or film and television promotion. That said, I agree. There's quite an obvious parallel in the style of stuff I do and the style of stuff that's often used in those fields. So I certainly wouldn't say no to opportunities to do that. I just recently did a film post. A client of mine, an actor, had self-produced a comedy short. So I worked with her and her team to make a poster for that. So that was my first sort of foray into that world. Putting text and stuff over the top of my images.
Yeah.
Which it was fun to do, but I'm not actively pursuing those kind of clients.
Okay.
Again, though, if you know of them and you want to put me in touch, then do.
If I did, then we'd be in touch together. I think it'd be the same scenario. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's work out there doing that sort of thing. I'm just not in that
cool.
mix of people at the moment.
Yeah.
Maybe that will happen at some point.
Awesome. Okay, thank you.
I've got a question that sort of precedes Tom's question. Reda.
Hello. I love your work, and I was thinking, when was the time that you understood you want to do only portrait photography, or you just started like straight away? But I missed it maybe, but I didn't hear it.
Yeah, no, we haven't covered that, but it's a good question. I think, like a lot of photographers, my interest in photography was quite general to begin with, and I shot all kinds of different things, animals, landscapes, events, whatever. It was around 3 years ago that I just really nailed it down to portrait photography and just stopped doing anything else and became very single-minded about it, and I think there's a huge benefit to that, sort of from a commercial point of view, to specialize and only do one thing. But it's also, at least from my point of view, it's also really important that that's done from the perspective of what gives you the most satisfaction. So for me, the whole process of being a portrait photographer is rewarding at every step. I like the close interaction with a small group of people or just an individual when we're doing the shoots, and the fact that I'm in charge of it, they have to do what I say. That's pretty good. But then I also like the fact that I'm in charge of the post-production as well, and I get to do that bit. So that's my, that rewards my introvert, if you like. Doing the shoot rewards my extrovert. So it's finding the thing that fits best for you, and then relentlessly pursuing that. And I think if you can do that, then you're kind of unstoppable, really. If it's motivated by anything else, you're going to potentially run into problems. But if you've got a type of photography that you really find rewarding, to the exclusion of all others, then that's absolutely what you should pursue.
Okay. Well, and have you tried daylight photography, portrait photography as well? Or you just decided that you want to do it in the studio, like as you discovered that it's for you, and then you went straight to the studio, or you tried with the daylight too?
Sorry, have I tried what other photography?
Daylight, like you
Oh, daylight. Yeah, sorry. That comes back to what I said in a previous question. I really like the technical aspect of photography as well as all the rest of it. So being in the studio gives me the opportunity to do all of that in one go. Being outdoors or just using available lights isn't as satisfying to me because it's not. I don't feel that I'm creating it as much. I'll choose my words carefully because there are plenty of fantastic photographers who do work with available light exclusively, and if the work is good, the work is good. There's no dogma about it. But from a personal satisfaction point of view, I love the fact that the space that you're seeing here gets transformed into whatever I want it to be through the use of lights and props and backdrops and a subject, and all of that is stuff that I have to create and direct. So that's
and it's also feeling safe and nice, I guess, just to be in the studio.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in London. You know, the weather's not always great. Many years ago, my first job when I left school was outdoors. I was outdoors 5 days a week for 5 years, and it's not that nice. You know, so yeah, it's warm and dry in here. It's good.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
Keep
you.
going.
With the kit, I guess, and backdrop. Ben has a question.
Hi. Yeah, so I'm relatively new shooting indoors, and backdrops, I've been looking into them, and they are supremely expensive, especially for like the nice, luscious ones that I see on Instagram everywhere. I bought a pop-up one, which is good on one side, a sort of like foggy, green, smoky look. Other side's useless, and that was £100 gone.
Right.
Have you got any ideas for something that's affordable, or somewhere I could look, or just a hack with making them, or just
Sure. Yeah. So, there are a number of things. One, not this one that I've got here, but the one that's, you can't see it behind there. I've got a plain grey one that I use a lot. And sometimes you'll see it in my work as being green, sometimes it's brown, sometimes it's blue. And that's just done with the color grading in post-production. Grey is incredibly versatile, and mid-grey is super versatile. So you can get extra value out of whatever you've got by doing that. But yeah, getting a hand-painted canvas when you're starting out is obviously a massive investment and not necessarily worthwhile. If you've got your subject a reasonable distance from the backdrop, it becomes less important what it's made of. And you can buy loose fabric on Amazon or eBay fairly cheap. It's a question of having an idea of what you're looking for so that you can search for it. I'm just going to wheel this camera around slightly and show you this stuff here, which is, it's just a loose woven cotton that's fairly sort of unevenly dyed and very crumpled. And if you hang that at a reasonable distance, it reads pretty much like a canvas backdrop. So you can. My cousin, who's a painter decorator, he gives me his old painters drop sheets, you know, the things they put on the floor to protect the carpet from paint drips, and they're made of a fairly heavyweight canvas, not as heavy as the canvas that you would use here, but heavier than the sheet that I just showed you. And I just have him splash paint all over it, and they work at a distance. You can make your own. There's plenty of tutorials available online telling you how to make your own if you've got the space. But yeah, just buying different like velvety textures. They're always going to look good because they've got a bit of variation to them. All good old-fashioned grey paper, cut it out in post and superimpose a texture on it if that's your thing as well. So there are plenty of ways of doing it, and that way you get to know what you like, and then it maybe becomes worth investing, money in a big hand-painted canvas at some point once you're certain that that's going to work for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice one. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
You're welcome.
Cheers. We've got a question coming in from social that I'm going to sort of elaborate on. It's shifting gears a little bit to the subject and talking a bit about the relationship between yourself, the artist, and the subject from the moment they walk in to settling them down. Give us an idea of what your process is.
Well, from the moment they walk in, it's about trying to figure out what they look like, how they move their face, what they're likely to be sensitive to about their own appearance, what their sense of humor is, whether they think I'm an idiot or not. That kind of stuff it's just like meeting somebody, right? These are things that we're gonna, whenever you meet somebody, consciously or not, you're basically trying to figure out those same things. How do they feel about me? How do they respond to the things that I'm doing? As a portrait photographer, I think we do the same thing, but very consciously. Ultimately, the aim is, how am I going to get this person to do the thing that I need them to do to create the image that I want to create? So a lot of that's going to be based on physical traits, you know, which side of their face looks best to me. Have they got some element of their appearance that they're going to hold back on? You know, like, if you're taking a picture of me, I don't like the fact that my hair is receding, so I tend to sort of shy away from having lights too high up on my head if somebody's photographing me. And you know, we can work around that. If the photographer's aware of that, they will hopefully bring that up, and we'll have the conversation about it, and maybe I'll ease up and let them do the thing that they want to do. But that's all part of it. There's the thing about, you know, setting somebody at their ease, which can mean any number of things to different people. Some people are very comfortable if you just take charge and essentially tell them what to do through the whole process. Some people are much more at ease if they feel that it's collaborative and they're being involved in or leading the decisions. And then in that case, it's my job to sort of guide them in those decisions to where we want to get to. But that's the great thing about portrait photography. It's, you know, every person's different, and that is part of the game, is figuring out how to get the result I want from you know, a different person coming in every day.
And do you have any specific techniques that you'll use to, I mean, putting somebody at ease is tricky, but give us some insight into how you work with your subjects?
Well, I mean, I think it goes back to that I've said, is, you know, working out how does this person respond is the thing. So most people will respond well to flattery. Some people respond better to flattery if you do it sort of tongue-in-cheek and they're in on the joke. But not everybody will. You have to work that out. I guess essentially it's a process of sort of trying everything and then being willing to abandon a strategy if it looks like they've reacted badly to it. Trying not to make too many assumptions about the person is probably key, because you know, you never know how a person's going to respond until you've spoken to them for a bit. But you know, we're all essentially, you know, human beings aren't that different from one another. Ultimately, and if somebody's coming into a photography studio, it's because they want to get a good picture of themselves. So the basics are already there. We know what we're trying to achieve. As soon as they walk in the door, we can see what we've got to work with. So then it's a question of figuring out their psychology, what's going to get them to cooperate, what's going to make them feel that they're able to sit there and have a camera and loads of lights pointed at them without feeling too uncomfortable and feeling that they just want to get out of there. I often make the parallel that it's like going to the dentist, you know? Nobody actively enjoys going to the dentist, but if you go in and you're made to feel that, you know, everything's fine and you're sort of a stakeholder in the process and the person is treating you with respect, it's not particularly unpleasant until they get the drill out. But you know, apart from that, it's perfectly fine.
Great. Just before I come to Ted, who we're going to shift gears into business, we have a super quick question. How big is your studio?
The floor area here that we've got is about 4 and a bit meters by 5 and a bit meters, and it's got a very high ceiling, 4.5 meter high ceiling. So that's I can't do the imperial conversion. What's that? 15 foot, is it?
Yeah, that feels
something like that. So it's about 15 foot by 18 foot and 15 foot high.
Nice, thanks. Ted's going to shift gears and talk a bit about business. Ted.
Hey, Ivan. Thanks so much for doing this. Really appreciate you. My question is, how do you approach locating like your ideal client and identifying them, like where they shop, who they are as a person, and then do you use any specific marketing tools to find those individuals? Like, are you doing anything like Facebook or like Facebook ads or something like that? Do you recommend? Yeah,
Sure.
I mean, and this is mainly not just for headshots, but your painterly style, your personal work.
Yeah. So my main strategy is Instagram. That's where most of my business comes from. And what's great about that is that once you've got a few people who have hired you to do the work that you want to do, you can work out where other people are going to be, because, you know, people who are similar will hang out in groups. So if this person likes my work and has found it to be worth paying for their own professional needs, they probably know a bunch of other people who would also appreciate it. Not everybody, but, you know, searching within the sort of the contacts, the network of people that you've already worked for is a great way of doing it, and social media is absolutely perfect for that. With regards to advertising, absolutely, I think we have to advertise. One of the biggest advantages for portrait photographers is that the work that we create is also the thing that we can put out as an advert, so we don't need to generally hire a photographer to create images to advertise our services. We do that ourselves, right? One thing that I would say there is you can advertise to the whole world on Facebook. It's much more efficient if you advertise to a very small subset, and working out who that subset is going to be based on who's hired you in the past, what do those people do, where are they based, and that's going to give you the biggest indication as to where to look for your next customer. So in a way, it's sort of like an assisted word of mouth process, but it's through social media rather than literally through word of mouth.
Thanks for
Thank you so much.
Stephen Glass, could you flesh out that question for me?
In what sense? Is that to me or is that to Stephen?
That's to Stephen, but I'll read it out. So Stephen's asked, are you selling prints? Is it all digital delivery?
I was just curious.
Go ahead.
I didn't know you could do it. I was just curious as what the whole sale is comprised of. It's just the session and you're delivering, you know, so many retouched images, but your work lends itself so much to large prints. I was wondering if that's part of the business model.
Sure. So for me, it's not. I do occasionally sell prints, but very occasionally. But it's not that's not the thing that I'm actively selling. If somebody hires me and then at the end of the session they want something printed, I certainly can arrange for that to happen. But I think that somebody who's hiring me because they want to create something that's going to hang on a wall, that's a different type of client. And that's not the market that I'm in with my business at the moment. There's definitely a market for it. There are definitely people that do that. There are definitely photographers who make a good living doing that kind of thing. That's just not the thing that's of most interest to me at the moment. So digital is where everything is, and that's what I concentrate on.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for the question. Orion's got a question he'd like me to ask. Does the client see the image as you're capturing it? And can you talk a little bit about the selection process?
Sure, yeah. The client sees the image as we're capturing it because it's another thing where I like shooting in the studio is that I'm tethered to the monitor over there. It's a big, like 27-inch screen, so you can see it from anywhere in this room quite clearly. getting somebody to relax or cooperate on camera, when they can see what's going on, they feel far more involved in the process. One of the sort of standard tricks that I use, if you like, if somebody's really holding back and there's an aspect of their appearance that they really dislike, like teeth, for example. I rarely smile in pictures because I've got slightly wonky teeth. So with somebody like me, I would get them to deliberately do a picture with a big toothy grin and then delete it in front of them to physically demonstrate. If you don't like the picture, you just delete it. It's quite simple. It's not like once it's captured, it's there forever and I'm going to use it to blackmail you or something. So I think that having the camera tethered to the computer is hugely, hugely important for portrait photography. Sorry, was there a second part to the question, Emma?
Yeah, selection process that you did.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. So of course, having the camera tethered throughout the shoot means that the selection process is not really sort of a separate thing. It's we're kind of doing it as we go along. That doesn't really work. Let's try something else. So we're making decisions as we go along as to what we're even going to potentially consider as being a contender for the final selection. And then when we get to the final selection, we've already discarded all the stuff that we both agree is not going to work. And then it's a process of, I suppose, negotiation in a way. As a photographer, I can give very impartial advice. This picture is good, this picture is not so good for these reasons. And I don't want to let anything out of the studio that I'm not 100% happy with. So that's a sort of a precondition. But at the same time, the client has to like the picture enough to want to buy it. So there's a negotiation there. It's a process of me advising them and then working out what it is they like, what it is they are likely to use, and then, of course, depending on how many pictures they want to buy, what kind of budget they've got, etc., that's going to play into the final decision as well.
Great, thanks, Ivan. Marcelo's asking if you plan on organising a masterclass in the future.
Well, yes, I've got several things in the works at the moment. Obviously, with our current situation, I swore I wasn't going to say that, but everything's on hold at the moment. But yeah, there are ideas, there are things afoot. So stay tuned.
Okay, thanks. And Ben has asked, natural light aside, do you ever shoot with just constant light now?
Yeah, I use constant light pretty much all the time. Certainly, I would say 90% of my work, constant light is at least the main bulk of what's going on. I use strobes as well to add accents to what I'm doing. Sometimes it's just easier to use like a small speed light, or I haven't got enough constant lights for doing what I want to do. Unless there's a particular technical reason, like freezing action, if I'm doing stuff with long exposures or whatever, I prefer constant light. And being in the studio, it allows me the control of blocking out all the ambient by pulling all the blinds down and putting up B-flats around the subject. So I don't have any of the technical issues that can sometimes be a problem if you're trying to use constant lights in a surrounding that's got a lot of ambient light to contend with. That said, if I go out on location, I always take a strobe or two with me. If I'm going to do office headshots, for example, I'll use constant lights for doing headshots. But if they want a group shot, then that's probably going to be done with strobes. If you've got a group of 15 people in an atrium of an office building, then strobes are going to do a much better job than constant lights at that point, unless you've got a sort of Hollywood lighting truck to accompany you, which I don't. So.
Cool. Right, I'm going to rattle through a few, Ivan, as we're a little pressed for time. Do you know where your clients are using the work? Is it going onto social media? Are they using it for personal reasons? How much of your work is on location? That's from Stevie.
So on location, probably once a month, and I shoot, apart from the current situation, I shoot on average 5 times a week. So 20, you do the maths. My clients, most of them are, as I say, people who are in the performing arts. So most of the time they're using the pictures for, for castings, for casting websites, for their agents' websites, to promote themselves in all the places that they would as actors or dancers or musicians. So yeah, that's mostly online use, hence almost everything that I deliver is digital, not print. Things do occasionally find their way into other uses, but the vast majority, that's what I do, that's who I'm working for, and that's what they need it for, so that's where the images end up being used.
Great, thanks. Couple more quick ones. Do you shoot medium format?
I do not. It's one of those things I'm scared. I think if I ever got a medium format camera, things would have to be going very, very well for me financially to be so stupid as to start dabbling in that world. I've always used Canon SLRs, so I've got all of the sort of the stuff that goes around it. It's for Canon. All of the lenses fit the bodies. It's all interchangeable. So it's quite a good, it's a system. If I got a medium format body, I'd have to get a whole new lenses. I'd be into all kinds of other compatibility issues with workflow, software, blah, 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 blah. I think it would be a big risk for me to do that because I'd get caught up in it. I know I would.
Okay, thanks. Right, we're just wrapping up with the last couple here. P. Chamberlain, just getting started in shooting portraits in a studio setup. Once you have gone through all family and friends, where's the best place to find models?
Well, friends are friends and family are family is good. But you could also join up to something like the Freelancer Club. This is the bit where I have to plug you, is that right, Matt? This is the pay bit. Seriously, for me, when I was starting, and I knew that that's what I wanted to do was build a portfolio of portraiture, and I was a member of the Freelancer Club, and I contacted people through that and did test shoots, and I got together. I was fortunate to be in contact with hairstylists, makeup artists, wardrobe stylists, etc., who all were in a similar sort of phase of wanting to create portfolio images to promote themselves. And we had this sort of team, I suppose, going into nothing official, but it's a sort of a loose collaboration, but there was a group of us all coming up at the same time. And because of that, we were able to collaborate in shoots and share the images. So finding people who are, who have a similar interest to you is really really a great way of going about that. Makeup artists and hairstylists are fantastic for that, because it just makes it easier if there's two of you helping to set things up. So I definitely recommend that.
Okay, a couple more. I've specialized, or this is Andre. I've specialized in portraits and headshots for corporate clients. And I wonder how you cope with clients who don't look at your final results, although you are 100% sure they look stunning and technically the photo is excellent.
If they don't look at the final results, I mean, I have no way of knowing if they're not looking at the final results. I suppose that, if I'm happy with the work and I've been paid for it, then ultimately that's the only thing that really matters. And are we talking about people that are not happy with the work when they have?
Yes, sorry. So he's just clarified if they don't like the final results. So I guess we're talking about a disagreement.
Right. So again, the tethering while you're shooting is really important for that, because as well as coaching the person and being able to make decisions together about where you're going with the shoot, you're getting their buy-in as to what they actually like. So you know, the client makes the decision about which final images are going to be selected. So for them then not to like them, there's some other problem going on. When that has happened, my sort of amateur psychological opinion is that it's a severe self-image issue, and I think we have to try and pick up on that as early as possible during shoot. But if you're shooting tethered and the client is making the final selection, then barring that kind of issue, I can't see that there's really any situation in which they wouldn't like the images. If they come back asking for like a small correction, I did one a couple of weeks back, and like the guy had a pocket square and it had slipped down a bit, and he came back saying, "Can you make the pocket square sit up more in my jacket?" That kind of thing. That's fine, yeah, making small adjustments. But if they just come back and say they don't like it, you have to wonder how it was that they selected the pictures in the first place.
So on that point, Red has asked, how many images do you present to the subject?
Mm-hmm. So in a typical shoot, let's say probably going to shoot something like 300 images maybe. I will weed out a bunch of those before we sit down to do the final selection, either based on me not liking them or mutual agreement that a certain look just isn't going to work for them. They're not interested in it. So the final selection probably starts off with something like, I don't know, 150 images, something like that. And we go through sort of rounds, using a star system. So the first round, get things to 1 star, next round, move them up to 2 stars, and incrementally narrow it down that way.
Okay, cool. Ted asks, do you have package pricing or do you price a la carte?
I don't do packages. So I do a session fee, and then it's a per image fee. I think packages are not the way to go. I mean, most of my clients are not regularly buying photography. They come in for headshots. Very often, they'll do it once or twice in their life. Best case scenario is, for actors, they're going to come in once a year, maybe, to get photographs. So expecting somebody to be able to choose whether they want the 1 image, the 3 image, or the 5 image, or whatever package before you've even created any images seems to me not the way to go at all. I think it's much better to have the session fee so that I know that my time and expertise is covered, and then if we shoot a load of stuff that they really love, they can buy as much of it as they want, as much as they can afford, obviously. And if they come in and they're dead set that they just want just the one look of what they turn up wearing, then we can do that as well. And we don't have to stick to a 1 hour or 2 hour or whatever schedule. I think approaching it as creative work, to put a time limit on creative work, seems to me like the most counterproductive thing you can ever possibly do. So I don't do it.
Okay, we're going to see, can we squeeze in a few, and then we're going to wrap. So, sure. On the same topic, typically how many images would a client purchase on average?
On average, 5.6 right now. Specific. But, yeah, well, I mean, I'm running the business, I need to know these things. But it varies, from somebody who buys 1 to somebody who buys 20 is the most I've sold from 1 session. And I don't really use that as a gauge for anything. I'm not worried about that. I've set up so that I work with 1 client a day. So if it takes 20 minutes or it takes 4 hours, that's all the same to me. I think when you look back a month later, the only thing that's important is, did you get good work? Did you do good work? If you've done good work, all the rest of it is immaterial.
Great. Okay, there are a few other questions that I think we will respond to off the session. Just want to thank you, Ivan, for the time. An hour has absolutely flown by. I also want to, because you're too humble to do it yourself, I want to shout out to say, if you want to get in touch with Ivan, he does offer mentor services. You can find him on Freelancer Club. You can find him through his site, however you want to get in touch, and reach out. I know clients who've done the same, and it's well worth it. So I'm going to get the recording edited. We'll put it together and we'll send it out to everybody who came. The Ask Me Anything concept relies on you guys, so thank you for the messages and for the questions. They're still coming in, so it's really overwhelming and very flattering. Most importantly, and the biggest thanks of all, Ivan, really insightful. So many messages of thanks are coming through. I think something that we might look at doing again, and if anyone else wants to get in touch, as mentioned, we'll make sure that they can connect with you and you can answer those questions.
Fantastic. Thanks for having me, Matt. And for everyone that's there, I mean, I'm always happy to talk to photographers about photography. So follow me on Insta, DM me, get in touch, and happy to have a chat. Always.
Great. Take care, Ivan. Thanks very much, everybody. Have a good day.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys.